Hi, I'm Dan Schmitt. I do a weekly television show called Team Chicago Challenge. My website is teamchicago.tv, teamchicago.tv. I'm up in Millburg, Michigan. We're at the racetrack. It's grown over parts of it, but you can still see the remnants of this great racetrack. This is where I learned how to race. This was the second place I ever raced. First, it was Sycamore Speedway outside of Chicago, Milberg, which was about 100 miles away from Chicago. So that year, 1970, 1971, this is where I learned how to race motorcycles. So they have a reunion. We're going to talk to some of the people in the next 10 or 12 minutes. We're going to show you some old footage from Milberg, talk to a few of the people that raced in Milberg, and I think this is a pretty enjoyable clip to let you know about one of the greatest racetracks in the United States back in the 1970s, Millburg Speedway. And don't forget my website, teamchicago.tv. That's right, teamchicago.tv.
First, let's take a look at some of the action. This is 1973-74. Back then, they ran 10 or 12 classes, 125s, 250s, 360s, 500 open class. As you look at the TT course, downhill, uphill with the jump, the right-hander, and onto the front straightaway. One more time, a very fast TT track, TT scrambles racing in the 1970s, right here at Millburg Speedway. And on Saturdays, they ran the short track into Saturday night. As we see the short track racing action, this is a 125 class, jumping out front in the red leathers. That is Eddie Scarlatta. Eddie Scarlatta is probably about 12 or 13 years old in this race. Making the move though, number 32, that is Garth Brow. Garth Brow, who later became a Botaco factory rider. Two very fast riders, Eddie Scarlatta and Garth Brow, battling for the lead in the short track event, Millburg Speedway. And as we look at the Speedway today, grown over, but we can still make out part of the track. I had a chance to talk to Tom Bethke, Rufus Hudson, Dick Leonard, Nile Hanchett, and Tom Hicks.
My name is Tom Bethke, and I raced here from about 1969 to about 73 on the TT track. And actually explaining where we're sitting right now, this was like the first corner. The starting line was right over here by this back of this car, a little bit farther down. That's where the starting line. They came along here, and then you went down across in this hill, and there was a little creek down there, and you went up over here and made a left-hander, a tight left-hander, and everybody used to love that corner. And then you came down again across the creek, and there was a jump right over here, and then you made a right-hander, and then around again, and to the starting line.
So none of those trees were there then?
Well, we're trying to debate whether these trees were here, right here.
Because we could have raced around them.
Could have raced around them. There's some pictures that show that a little bit clearer. We can go look at that.
Right.
That's a little groggy to me, but there was a beautiful right-hander right there. I used to love that right-hander. Nobody knew how to run right-handers. It seems I can go right-handers better than anybody. So, but the jump, you could actually get the back end of the motorcycle. All depends what many balls you had. You could get it 5 foot off the ground, you know, and you would maybe fly maybe 30 to 40 feet until you landed. It was awesome. It was just awesome.
My name's Rufus Hudson. I used to race at Milberg here. I used to race 250 Suzuki on the short track and the TT, and a 650 BSA on the TT. I raced from about 1968 to about 71 here. Won quite a few races here. Well, you'd come over this jump, you'd come up here over this hill, you could get as high enough that a person walking could go walk right underneath the rear wheel. That's how high to get in the air.
And then what? Then what we do after you went over the jump? What was
Well,
the trick?
You have to make a right hand as soon as you landed at the head. Your front brakes and your rear brakes right on hard as you get and make that sharp right turn to go around for the straightaway again.
Hey, I'm Dick Leonard, 70X, but in those days I was just 70. I remember the first time I came here, folks had told us how to get here, and it was probably my second or third race ever. And when we pulled in, it was kind of a winding trail and you didn't know what you were going to see, but when you saw the racetrack, it was like, wow, it was wide and smooth and guys were going really fast on it. So then it was a little intimidating at first. And you get out there and ride with them and it was okay. It was pretty fun. They took really good care of this track.
So what do you remember about running the TT? Tell me, walk me through a lap on the TT and just point. You can point to how did you used to ride it?
I'm a little lost on. We actually started over here on the front straightaway someplace.
Right here.
I don't know. I don't know if the track came around here. I can't remember, but we come right down the front straight when we took off. Well, they started us in the middle of the straight, but we come out of the pits and what I remember was when you got going fast enough, well, the 250 anyway, and the 360s were just a little crazy. But when you made that sweeper off the front straightaway, if you was going competitive speed, you pretty much just were touching the ground on the way down the hill. When you got the bottom, it just squatted right down, and you'd almost come off the ground, and you have to set up a turn, and there's no weight, and so it was kind of easy, but it was all smooth. You just keep going faster, and then back down to the pit, and this one, the jump. You go as fast as you could go, but if you accomplished that, then you really were coming. You needed to had your turn started before you even come to the ground. You were starting to set it off, and if you didn't, then you blew across that little straightaway and you're right into the guys coming around. So, but they managed that pretty good, and then the sweeper was pretty fun. You were right on the limit in the 250s anyway with your horsepower and what you could keep the back wheel behind you.
Hello, I'm Nile Hanchett. We're here at the reunion for Milberg. Going back in time, 1972 through 76 here, and definitely looks a lot bigger than what it was. These straightaways are long, probably shifting on most bikes. But a little sad to see, but maybe we can get it going again. I don't know. We're lining up over here for the chute in turn 4. Practice line started over there at that gate, and it was 2 abreast all the way around, times 2 lines, 2 abreast. Probably about 260 riders here in an evening. So these guys really punched out a lot of riding. Tom Hicks here, he used to ride. And we all turned pro out of here, and once we turned pro, we went away a little bit, and about that time it closed down in 79, so we weren't able to come back and ride as professionals, but sure learned a lot here as an amateur.
I'm Tom Hicks, raced out here from late 74 through 77. Started on my 60 and rode up to my 125, I think was the last thing I rode here. But this track was one of the greatest tracks there was. It was always smooth, it was always fast. The TT was really neat because of the fact that you were carrying so much speed down the front straightaway and through a sweeper turn. We walked the old TT track through the briars now, but at the top of you go down through the sweeper, down the hill, and back up to the top of the hill, there's a little hairpin. And we were talking about that, how many times we all wound up out in the woods because we'd overshoot the hairpin, carrying so much speed down through there. There was just a lot of good memories. Met a lot of great people, had so much fun here. It was one of the greatest tracks around in its day, and if it was still going, I'm sure it still would be.
Thank you, gentlemen. As we look at the TT course one more time, the downhill, the hairpin turn, the jump through the right-hander and onto the fast front straightaway. Back at Chiefs Bar in downtown Millburg, I talked to Kenny Scheffler, one of the owners of the track, and Jim Trowbridge is going to tell us his story from the track.
Okay, Ken Scheffler.
All right, so how long did you guys own the racetrack out there?
My dad started from the scratch, and then when he got killed, I took over in '71.
Okay. So what was the last year they ran?
I believe it's 78 or 77, around 78, the motorcycle track.
What do you think was your busiest year? What were the highlight of?
Oh, from about 73 to 77, I mean, it was, we had the short tracks on Saturday night and the TT scrambles on Sunday. We would have over 300 bikes on the short track events on a Saturday night. For at least 5-6 years.
Right.
Scheffler's ever had a TT race. And I was riding a Bull Taco Astro. Took off in the main event and led the damn main event the whole time. And Ted Booty,
hey, keep it down.
Ted Booty and Steve Elo was on my ass, man. I don't know if you were in there or not, but you might have been. But it was on the TT. And I thought I had that race. It was the last corner. I come off that jump, and when I hit the ground, I bumped my damn bike into neutral. And I jammed that Bull Taco in. I couldn't get it to turn, so I hit the damn grass in the median. The bike went like this, and off I went. And I rolled across the track. And I rolled right out onto I rode off the grass. You know, the telephone pole was there. And then I rolled out into the track. And I stood up. Ted Booty and Steve Elo was crossed up and head right toward my ass, and all I could do is run off the track, man. And I kicked myself in the ass for that because I could have beat them both.
Thank you, Kenny and Jim. As my late brother Joe adjusts my clutch lever, I head out to run the B final. And on the line, Jerry Scheffler talks to his brother Kenny. Now I'm going to tell my story at the Chief's Bar.
I am Dan Schmitt. I'm from Chicago, and I raced in Milberg in 1970, the end of 1970. So let me tell you a little bit about how I got into racing. I knew nothing about racing. The only racing I ever went to was a drag strip with the motorcycles. And if you've ever been to a drag strip with a motorcycle, you're treated like dirt. 100 cars will run and then they'll let the motorcycles go. So the guys from A Cycle World in Chicago used to go to Santa Fe Speedway every Wednesday night. And they said, you gotta come with. I had my Triumph Street bike. So I finally went to Santa Fe Speedway on a Wednesday night. How many people have been to Santa Fe? You'd walk in the front gate, the beer stand was here, the grandstands were here. I walked up 50 feet over to the racetrack and I said, man, I want to do this. I thought it was the coolest thing I ever seen in my entire life. So I went on and talked to Jan Gabriel. How many people remember Jan Gabriel? The announcer. Okay, so Jan Gabriel, I went up and talked to him. He said, you cannot, this is professional racing. The only way you can get into racing Santa Fe, you got to run 2 years as an amateur. You got to be 18 years old to get a novice license. Everybody remembers this, right? So, Joe Scarlatta, how many people remember Eddie Scarlatta? Joe Scarlatta, right? Joe drove a coffee truck with me. He had his own truck, and I had my truck, Dan's Coffee Cup, and he had the black truck, I had the gold truck. And so Joe picked up an OSA, and we went out to Sycamore Speedway in a 250 Pioneer, and we ran Sycamore Speedway a couple of times. And Joe Scarlatta bet me $10 that I wouldn't race that year. That was 1970. Went out to Sycamore Speedway, came off the line in the B class, crashed in the first corner. The final, everybody made the final, so I just followed everybody around. So the next weekend was Milberg. So I went up to Milberg, this is 1970, last race of the year, so I could get my 1 year amateur racing in. After I could ride around the track, the season was over, that was 1 year. 1971, I raced every Milberg, and we got to also remember, I think the entry fee then was $2, am I right? $2? $2 was the entry fee to race. I just want to say, the one thing I learned with motorcycle racing is, number one, you meet the greatest people, hardest working, people that will take off their shirt, help you out, make sure you're on the racetrack with them. Even though you're the most fiery competitor, they'll come out and they'll give you a hand.
Now we get to look at a race at Millburg Speedway, middle of 1971. I'm coming off the line. See, I back up a little bit for that first corner. This film caught me, and you got to stay on the gas through the first corner. I'm running in third place and go over the jump. I'm in green leathers. It's a 68 Triumph Bonneville, blue and white. It's got a BSA gas tank. Down the chute one more time to the downhill. To point out that my late friend, Tom Yunker, shot this film, no tripod, and I think Tom did a great job. And I learned a lot watching this film. Because the next race, my dad came with, and I won the final, but I was only running the B class. This was the B class. Punk Wells dominated the A class with the big bikes out here at Millburg Speedway. And this is my second season racing, so this is probably my 10th or 12th ever race, because I raced at Milberg. I also raced at Sycamore Speedway. And I believe one time I went to Delta, Ohio, and ran their TT course. Competition was stiff at Milberg. You could do good at Milberg, you could do good anywhere. You see, I'm running in third place. Slow it down a little bit over the jump. And this was the action. Millburg Speedway, short track on Saturday night, TT racing on Sunday. You gotta remember, this is film. You only had 5 minutes of film. You couldn't shoot the entire race. But at the end, look at the start-finish line. I crashed right at the start-finish line in the left-hander. And you'll see me getting off the ground. That's me in the green leathers. Let's take another look. The final, crashing at the line and getting up at Millburg Speedway. And I want to thank the Steve Johnson family for the racing footage from the mid-1970s, and the late Tom Yunker for the footage of my race. Tom did a great job with that 8mm camera. Join us next year, Chiefs Bar and Grill, Millburg, Michigan, on Territorial Road, April 2017. Don't forget TeamChicago.tv, walkwithdan.com.